Recommence. So, bonjour tout le monde. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our special meeting this September 23rd at 11:30 a.m. The séance extraordinaire qu'on fait ce vendredi matin à 11h30 le 23 septembre. Je déclare la séance ouverte à 11h31. I open the meeting at 11:31. And before we adopt the agenda, I just have a few words to say, and then we'll move into the short order of business for this morning. I'll say everything for the sake of people watching from home, and for everyone, I will be speaking in both English and French and not picking and choosing. So bear with me as I repeat in both languages to make it sure everybody is comfortable with today's meeting. So, comme beaucoup d'entre vous le savez, mon style de travail général a été dès le début et continue d'être ouvert et transparent. Cependant, il arrive que la convocation d'une réunion spéciale soit la bonne chose à faire. Bien que certaines puissent le percevoir comme un manque de quelque chose, il faut au contraire utiliser avec prudence et lorsqu'un retard peut avoir des répercussions. Lorsque nous avons modifié notre règlement de démolition en augmentant le coût du permis et en autorisant un rapport d'ingénieur indépendant, nous l'avons fait à un rythme normal. Ce qui a entraîné une augmentation du nombre de propriétaires souhaitant éviter ces changements. Étant donné la nature sérieuse du sujet aujourd'hui, je n'étais pas disposée à attendre et à voir la situation se répéter. De mon point de vue, c'est exactement ce qu'il est fait aujourd'hui et tout cela dans le cadre de la loi sur les lois des cités et villes. Je tiens beaucoup à remercier Myriam, Laurence, Philippe, Gabriel, Nicolas et Nick Mavrias pour les efforts qu'ils ont déployés afin de rendre cela possible. So as many of you know, my general working style has been from the start and continues to be open and transparent. However, there are times that calling a special meeting is the right thing to do. While some may perceive this to be a lack of something, on the contrary, I challenge it. It should be used sparingly, and when delaying it could have repercussions. When we moved into changing our demolition bylaw, increasing the cost of permits, and allowing for independent engineering reports, we did this at a normal pace. And what resulted was an increase in the Department of Urban Planning of property owners wishing to avoid these changes. Given the serious nature of today's topic, I was not willing to wait and have a repeat performance. From my perspective, this is exactly what is being done today, and all within the laws outlined in the Cities and Towns Act, where a town may call a special meeting when it deems its important nature. I wish to thank Myriam, Laurence, Philippe, Gabriel, Nicolas, and Nick for their efforts this week in order to put together all the details that go into making a special meeting happen. So at this point, I would ask Tony, Councillor Brown, to adopt the agenda, l'adoption de l'ordre du jour.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I propose to adopt the agenda of the special council meeting of September 23rd, 2022.
Thank you. A councillor second?
I second.
Nadia Basada, thank you. All in favor? So 5 in favor, opposed? Pardon? I'm sorry, are you opposed? Yes. So for the record, 1 is opposed.
Thank you. I have to raise your hand.
So there's one item on the agenda. I have asked the councillors with their permission that I read the resolution. Then councillor will motion, and following the motion, every councillor will have an opportunity to speak before we put through the vote. So this is under section B, administration, section B, administration, et je pense que je vais le faire dans les 2 langues aussi. Donc ça va prendre un peu de temps. Je vais commencer avec la version en anglais et je vais la faire répéter en français. So this morning, the notice of motion is concerning the upcoming adoption of an interim control bylaw regarding demolitions in the residential sector. Whereas the town has undertaken the revision of its urban plan and regulations in accordance with the provisions of the Act respecting land use, planning, and development. Whereas the integration of demolition and reconstruction projects in residential areas has been identified as problematic. Whereas pursuant to the sections of 109.1 and following 110.1 and following of the said Act respecting land use, planning, and development, the town may avail itself of the provisions relating to the interim control when it began a process of modifying its urban program. Whereas in accordance with the precautionary principle, an interim control bylaw is necessary for the town to proceed with studies, analysis, planning, and the establishment of a regulatory framework guaranteeing the quality of life to its citizens. Whereas the municipal council wishes to adopt an interim control bylaw to exercise and modulate a freeze effect on the planning and development of certain parts of the territory during the revision process of the said regulatory tools. Whereas in accordance with the above mentioned sections of the Act respecting land use and planning development, the town may prohibit demolitions. Whereas the town has adopted a strategic vision in 2021, whereas the preservation of the built environment is one of the key elements to implement this vision, whereas the ongoing revision process is an opportunity to further refine our understanding of how to integrate new residential development within the existing character of the town. Whereas certain environmental characteristics could be altered considerably, and this sometimes irreversibly, and in accordance with the current bylaws. Whereas until the planning program and planning bylaws revision process is duly completed, council deems it prudent to introduce the said interim control to enforce a freeze on the planning and development of certain parts of the territory. Whereas the application of an interim control gives the town the time and space to pursue the discussion in order to present a new development vision with the goal of optimizing citizen support. Whereas the main objectives of the revision of the planning program and planning bylaws are the following. Review the vision and development guidelines in the planning program and ensure they are consistent with the unique character and the municipal infrastructure capacity of the milieu. Review the orientations, objectives, and means of implementation in order to support the housing needs of the population while respecting the general characteristics of the environment. Ensure that resilience and climate change adaptation guide the planning and implementation of new residential homes that gradually replace certain aging components of the environment or components that are poorly adapted to new economic realities and trends. Whereas the reflection process is in process and the council wishes to give itself the time and the means necessary to pursue it without compromising its ability to reorient the development of the residential sector. Whereas an interim control bylaw must be adopted 90 days following this notice of motion and the present interim control resolution. So I will continue on in English. I will switch to French after I ask somebody to move this. So whereas I give notice that an interim control bylaw will be presented for an adoption at a subsequent council meeting, I move, and I ask for somebody to second, please. So before I continue, so I will finish in the English, that the preamble of the present resolution is an integral part of the said resolution for all legal purposes. That the municipal council takes note of the above mentioned notice and to prohibit any demolition in all areas allowing residential use RA and RB on the territory of the town for a period of 90 days from adoption of the present resolution. Now I will repeat this in French. So aujourd'hui, on fait un avis de motion concernant l'adoption éventuelle d'un règlement de contrôle intermédiaire en matière de démolition dans le secteur résidentiel de la ville. Attendu que la ville a amorcé la révision de ses plans et règlements d'urbanisme conformément aux dispositions de la loi sur l'aménagement et l'urbanisme, attendu que l'intégration des projets de démolition et de reconstruction en milieu résidentiel a été identifié comme problématique, attendu qu'en vertu de les articles 109.1 et suivant 110.1, en suivant de la TID, loi sur l'aménagement et l'urbanisme, la Ville peut se prévaloir des dispositions relatives au contrôle intérimaire lorsqu'elle a commencé un processus de modification de son plan d'urbanisme. Attendu que conformément aux principes de précaution, un règlement de contrôle intérimaire est nécessaire pour que la Ville puisse effectuer les études, analyses, planification et l'établissement d'un cadre réglementaire garantissant une qualité de vie à ses citoyens. Attendu que le conseil municipal désire adopter un règlement de contrôle intérimaire pour exercer ou moduler un effet de gel sur l'aménagement et le développement de certaines parties de la territoire durant le processus de révision et ses utiles réglementaires. Attendu que conformément aux articles submentionnés de la loi sur l'aménagement et l'urbanisme, la Ville peut interdire les démolitions. Attendu que la Ville a adopté une vision stratégique en 2021, attendu que la conservation du milieu bâti est un des éléments clés pour implanter cette vision, attendu que le processus de révision en cours est l'occasion de définir notre compréhension de l'intégration de tout nouveau développement résidentiel en fonction des attributs existants de la Ville. Attendu que certaines caractéristiques des milieux portants être substantiellement modifiés et cela d'une façon parfois irréversible et ce conformément aux nos règlements actuellement en vigueur. Attendu que le conseil municipal estime qu'il est prudent d'introduire cette mesure de contrôle intérimaire pour forcer le gel de planification et du développement de certaines parties du territoire, tant que le processus de révision d'un plan d'urbanisme et les règlements ne sera complété. Attendu que l'imposition du contrôle intérimaire nous accorde l'espace et la liberté de poursuivre sereinement la discussion en vue de présenter une nouvelle vision d'aménagement ayant comme objectif optimiser l'adhésion citoyenne. Attendu que les principaux objectifs de la révision du plan d'urbanisme et des règlements sont les suivants. Revoir les grands axes de la vision d'aménagement soutenant le plan d'urbanisme et de s'assurer que ces dernières soient en cohérence avec les caractéristiques significatives du territoire et de la capacité du support du milieu. De revoir les orientations, les objectifs et les moyens à mettre en œuvre permettant de soutenir une densification résidentielle qui répond aux besoins de loger la population tout en respectant les caractéristiques générales des milieux. De s'assurer que résilience et l'adaptation au changement climatique guident la planification et la réalisation des grands projets de requalification urbaine qui se subit progressivement à certaines composantes vieillissantes du territoire ou désadaptées aux nouvelles réalités économiques se profilant dans divers secteurs d'activité. Attendu que la réflexion n'est pas complétée et que le Conseil souhaite se donner le temps et les moyens nécessaires de la poursuivre, donc sans compromettre sa capacité de réorienter les cibles de développement à mettre en œuvre dans le secteur résidentiel. Attendu qu'un règlement de contrôle intérimaire doit être adopté dans les 90 jours suivant le présent avis de motion et la présente résolution de contrôle intérimaire. Attendu que moi, comme mairesse, donne avis qu'un règlement de contrôle intérimaire sera présenté pour l'adoption à une séance ultérieure de ces conseils, je propose et je suis appuyée par conseillère Gruber, que le préambule de la présente résolution en fasse partie intégrante pour valoir à toute fin que de droit. Que le conseil municipal prenne de l'avis submentionné et qu'il est d'interdire toute démolition dans toutes les zones permettant l'usage résidentiel, soit le RA et RB, sur le territoire de la ville, et que pour une période de 90 jours à compter de l'adoption de la présente. So before we go to vote, I believe all councillors will speak, and because we are live streaming this internally rather than with our external company, Web TV, I'm going to go around the table and then the camera will go back and fill in the table this way. So I'll begin with Councillor Lowenstein, please.
Okay. So demolition and development in our town's residential sector has been a concern for many years now. The urban planning program of 2016 already refers to the issue of building size with regards to the residential landscape, urbanization, reduction of garden space and vegetation, and the impact on the town's storm drainage system. This was also one of the hot topics in the 2017 election and one that concerned me when I ran for council at that time. Since then, I've become more familiar with the various issues that accompany many demolitions, especially as I was involved in the demolition committee for 4 years. Whereas the visual impact of replacing a small house with a larger one is the more obvious one, there are many underlying issues that also need to be addressed. My primary concern is for sustainable development and looking at the bigger picture of the impact of demolitions and the construction of larger houses with deeper basements and greater land coverage on the environment, on the neighbors, on the town infrastructure. We've been able to identify several of the increasing issues surrounding demolitions, as well as the extensive house renovations over the last few years, and we've worked towards finding solutions. The current bylaw reform plays a role in the sustainable development of our town. I am not against development nor demolitions when justified. Times and tastes change, and we should not stagnate as a town. Our town, however, is a unique jewel with its large lots, and in order to maintain this particular characteristic, we need to develop in a manner that is sustainable. We're overdue in starting to do so. I don't want further development to go in a direction that is not in line with the strategic vision of our town, and we need time to reflect on what role our bylaws will play. For this reason, I am in favor of the proposed resolution and the reasoning outlined therein. I will comment as an aside, because this will probably come up in some of the other statements, that the sale of a house should not be dependent on the prospect of its demolition. The acquisition of a demolition permit is not a guarantee in any case.
Thank you, Councillor Lowenstein.
J'ai pas une traduction, j'avais pas assez de temps, mais c'est juste pour dire que ça continue d'être un problème des démolitions. On a des uniques lots ici dans la ville, des lots plus larges, puis des problèmes des démolitions des maisons plus larges. Ça prend un impact sur les voisins, l'environnement, l'infrastructure de notre ville. Puis, je suis d'accord avec cette résolution pour prendre le temps d'être sûr que nos refonds réglementaires sont en ligne avec notre vision stratégique.
Merci.
Merci, thank you. Conseillère Besada, Councillor Besada.
Thank you, Mayor Ahmed. Bonjour tout le monde. Moi aussi, je supporte cette démarche. Et comme la démolition, comme conseillère Lancen a précisé, n'est pas toujours le problème. Il y a des démolitions qui sont vraiment justifiées. C'est la construction aussi qui vient avec. Et je vais juste lire ce paragraphe dans la résolution. Attendu que le processus de révision en cours est l'occasion de définir notre compréhension de l'intégration de tout nouveau développement résidentiel en fonction des attributs existants de la ville, et j'ajoute à ça les différentes rues et secteurs de la ville. Donc, cette mesure-là, ça permet de mettre un genre de, bon, je perds mon mot en français, just to put a little stop to allow us, pour nous permettre de repenser nos règlements. Et en même temps, cette mesure qu'on vote aujourd'hui, elle est pour 90 jours, nous permettant de formuler le règlement de contrôle intérimaire. Donc, dans ce sens-là, je supporte complètement cette mesure. Just to say it in English, I'm going to read this paragraph from the resolution. I think it also highlights why we're going ahead with this. Whereas the ongoing revision process is an opportunity to further refine our understanding of how to integrate new residential development within the existing character of the town, and I would add to that, within the characteristics of each neighborhood. So by doing this demolition, often the demolition is not an issue. The issue is what comes after. And today we are voting for a 90-day hold on demolition, allowing us to formulate the actual interim control that we will, and then we will vote again. So given all of that, I do support entirely this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Basada. So next prochainement, ça va être conseillère Thompson, Councillor Thompson.
Good morning. I'm going to vote against this. The first reason is pretty simple. The first I heard of this was at a meeting on Tuesday. It was a 20-minute discussion, and 2 councillors weren't there. And the next thing I know, here we are sitting here. So I certainly haven't had enough time to contemplate what this means. However, my initial reaction and the reasons that I am going to answer, apart from that, is this is extremely prejudicial to smaller homes, particularly smaller homes that have been here with longtime residents, have lived here. What it effectively means is it affects in my view, the market value of their home, and they won't be able to sell it. The other problem is our demolition bylaw is very restrictive. For instance, in Point Claire, the demolition says that if you demolish 75% of the volume of the house, it's a demolition. In Baie-D'Urfé, it's 50% of the roof or 20% of the structural wall. What that means is a ban on demolition not only affects houses coming down, it affects anybody that wants to do, I'm going to say, not a terribly major renovation. And I'll give you an example. I live on Cambridge, Lower Cambridge. There's 17 homes in Lower Cambridge. A number of them have been, 2 of them have been torn down and rebuilt, but a number of them have had renovations on them. And I don't know if you know the street, but 1 Cambridge, 8 Cambridge, 9 Cambridge, which is where I live, 11 Cambridge, and 14 Cambridge. None of those would be permitted under this ban. None of those renovations would be permitted under this ban. So I think it's extremely prejudicial to those people. I guess the other thing is we talk about strategic vision, and it says whereas a strategic vision is looking for environmental reconstruction and redevelopment, and as one of the key issues. But one of the other key issues is an inclusive town with exemplary civic engagement. And under that is a smooth communication between the town and the citizens. Now, we have Well, we've got more people at a council meeting than I've seen since I've been on council, which isn't that long, on a 20-hour notice. Can you imagine if we had given a reasonable notice to people, what sort of participation we would get? So, you know, I really think that this is not the way to do things. I probably shouldn't say it, but democracy dies in the darkness. Anyway, and the other thing is a ban. This is not a proactive. This is not a proactive, in my view, solution. There are other options that we can do. I'm as concerned as anyone with demolition and reconstruction and what's going up in town and to make sure that it fits in with what we want in Baie-D'Urfé. But I think there's a lot of other options that we can look at. We can, for instance, apply our state bylaw to demolition so that a committee, a town planning committee, takes a look at the reutilization programs and makes suggestions. This can all be done as an interim measure while the bylaws are being written. Because don't kid yourself, the notice of motion calls for a 90-day ban. But once the bylaws in, we're not going to get a revision of the bylaws for 2 years. So this could effectively be in place for 2 years. Anyway, and I guess those are my reasons.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. So now we will, for the sake of the camera, we will move over to Councillor Brown, and then we will follow through back to Bridget, Councillor Chartrand, and Councillor Gruber. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good morning. There has been a lot of concern among citizens about the number of demolitions over recent years and some new houses that have been built and the resulting change in Baie-D'Urfé's landscape. In fact, concerns about demolitions and some new homes were among the top issues identified by citizens during the town strategic planning exercise and the overriding issue voiced by citizens in the recent by-election, in my experience. The time has come to update our bylaws in order to give us more control over demolitions and new houses. Following that principle, it is important that all changes made are carefully thought through and that we end up with a set of rules that will help to preserve the charm and beauty of Baie-D'Urfé. I believe that the application of an interim control bylaw will give the town the time and space to properly and fully pursue effective planning, preparation, and discussion in order to support a new development vision and to proceed with the establishment of a regulatory framework guaranteeing the quality of life to its citizens and help us preserve the environment of our town. And for those reasons, I plan to support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Chartrand, Councillor Chartrand.
Mayor, I think if you don't mind, I'd like to listen to Mr. Gruber first, since
It's okay.
this was conveniently done 20 minutes after I have to leave the meeting.
Absolutely, if you'd like to,
I'd
you can either speak right now, Councillor
I'd like to hear what
Chartrand,
everybody
and
thinks.
we can go to Councillor Gruber and we'll come back to
I would
you.
rather the reverse. I would prefer the reverse, which was the ordained order.
So Councillor Chartrand, before we decided, I had no control over the placement of this or the camera, but it was decided the order. So if you would like to go ahead and speak, it is now your turn to speak.
So I conveniently missed on Tuesday, as Mr. Thompson has explained, the last 20 minutes of a meeting that was running long. I unfortunately have another job to do, and I had a client meeting at 5 o'clock, so I had to leave at 4:30. This was discussed in the last 20 minutes, even though I have been there since 1 o'clock. So it's always nice to know who your friends are. That being said, as Tom says, my issue is not necessarily the whole idea of the RCI. My issue is the way it was handled. It's the way this was done. It's done by the back door, secretly, nothing was brought up. We don't know where we're going and where we're coming with this thing. This was pushed through quickly yesterday. I got notice of it at noon. And my issue with this is this is how rumors start. This is how things start. This is how backlashes start. And whether it's for people doing new renovations or not, or whether it's for people that want to sell their homes, guess what? It's bad for business.
Absolutely.
I'm in the housing market. I am not a real estate agent. I am not a developer. I do mortgages for an institution. This is not good for business. People get afraid, people get scared, and your property values on a band will stagnate. They will not go up. Nobody will want to invest in Baie-D'Urfé. Just like Senville had for a long time, because they didn't have a ban necessarily, but the rumor was they were closed for business, no renovations and no extensions were being done because it was extremely difficult to get a permit. So I hope nobody has to sell a home in 2 years. You might not be getting the price tag you want.
Okay. So,
I will not be supporting.
Council, thank you, Councillor Chartrand. Councillor Gruber.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Okay, well, first, my goal as a councillor is to make every effort to work collegially with my fellow councillors wherever possible. And one of the ways I do that is to look for common values in any issue that is facing us. And I do find one common value in this particular issue. Surely must be that the primary goal of this council is not to get the highest price necessarily for people's properties. Otherwise, if it were, there are many other bylaws that we could introduce that would for sure increase the value of the people's property when they go to sell, but at the cost of the physical and the social infrastructure environment of this town. Clearly, we haven't gone for any of the other ones that are a possibility. So it's a general recognition that the most important thing is not necessarily the price of a house. However, unlike one of my councillors here, Councillor Chartrand, I do not believe that the introduction of this temporary freeze necessarily is going to be detrimental for the sale of houses in our town if it is handled properly. And that, for the important thing is, if rumors are put about, they must be met by fact. The plan, the strategic vision of this town, supported by the work of this council to implement it, is, I find, a very exciting thing for our town. It is the reason why I came out of my retirement to devote my hours to this council, was to work with others to bring that about and to direct the development of this town in a way that the citizens had called for in the strategic vision and the council has enunciated on ad nauseum over the last years. There are no surprises here and the direction that we're going. And as I say, I think that any talk of house prices, if people do support misinformation and don't counter it with the positivity of what we're doing in this town, then we will have missed an opportunity to draw the citizens to our housing market that would support the vision of the town. With regard to other alternatives that might be possible to ensure avoiding the problems that the mayor and others have alluded to by not allowing us to have some interim period, I do not feel that the only one that's been really mentioned to me is that of extending the current spate bylaws across the town. When I look at what has happened on what I call the regular streets of this town that fall under spate, Sunny Acres, Lakeview, it is what convinces me that this would not be a good solution whatsoever. Talking to the people who have seen the spate has not in any way stopped what I would consider a poor development in those areas. What I mean by that is huge drainage problems caused by new houses, and not to put down anyone's house, but to do exactly what this vision doesn't call for. an entire block of houses, the character has been fundamentally changed from what it was. I'm not saying the houses are good or bad, but if that kind of development happens under spate, I say no, thank you. I need something stronger than that to counteract the movements in this town of housing development. And that essentially is why I bothered to come on the council in the first place, and of which I made no secret. I would also like to point out that, speaking for myself, and I know others are maligned by this as well, people who have concerns in the way that I've just outlined are not in any way anti-development or not in my backyard people. This is something, a brush that is often used to smear people with views such as my own with. It could not be further from the truth. There is a role for developers, both entrepreneurs and for individuals in the development of our town. The question is not to be anti-development. The question that of central concern here to me and to many others in this town, I know, because they have spoken out to me and to others about it, is what are you going to develop? What is going to be put in place of houses that are being torn down? And as I say, to me, the key here is to ensure that the development that is permitted in the future supports both the architectural harmony of this town and also the physical and social infrastructure environment that we have and wish to hang on to in this town. That's why I think it is of critical importance that we implement this resolution right now. It's giving us the time that we now need before there is a slurry of events with all sorts of stuff going on about, oh, we must get it done beforehand, the prices are going down. This is what is commonly known as scaremongering, and I absolutely fundamentally reject that as an abhorrent tactic. It is, I believe, it is only comes true if you make it true. Let people know what the vision of this town is. Let people know what the quality of life is in this town and how strongly the majority of people want to keep it. And we will continue to have people who want to come to this town and live in it. And I would like to also address the idea, this is not a new idea. It may be new to some people who have perhaps recently come to the council. It doesn't mean to say they couldn't have heard about it before, but before the November election, many people certainly asked me, and also publicly, citizens were saying, can there not be a freeze? When I joined the council, I had put this on the table from the beginning. And it is at this point that we've clarified what the legal process is to introduce such a freeze. It is not a new idea to both many people in this town or to this council. It may be to some people who haven't been following it closely, but I reject the idea that it's a new idea at all. And I'll finalize by saying, of course, nobody can predict the future, can guarantee the future. We'd all be very wealthy if we could do that. We can't. We can strategically look at what is the best route that we can estimate to achieve the goals that we want to, which is what I believe we're doing here. However, what we can predict is if we do nothing, if we stick with the past, we know what we're going to get. And quite frankly, I think that's inadequate. It's not enough for me. I want something better for my town. And that is why I am supporting this resolution today.
Thank you.
Oui, c'est un plaisir. Mon premier bout comme conseiller.
Je m'excuse, on va attendre que Monsieur Boober peut parler. Merci. Allez-y.
Ah oui, okay.
Oui, absolument.
Ma première bout comme un conseiller, c'est travailler avec l'équipe dans le comme une équipe, ok? Dans cette approche-là, je cherche pour la valeur en commune pour l'équipe. La valeur que j'ai trouvée pour tout le monde ici, c'est le concept de la prix de la maison. C'est pas la première ou seulement dimension qui devons considéré dans le cas, the case in front of us now. Aussi, avec l'implementation of the réforme réglementaire est présentée à la citoyen, le potentiel citoyen de notre ville est présenté dans la lumière positive. C'est pas un effet négatif sur le prix de la maison dans les prochaines années peut-être. Aussi, point 2, avec concernant la suggestion de l'application de l'aspect contre la ville, c'est pas un travail pour moi parce que nous avons déjà des expériences avec ça sur les rues Sunny Acres et Lakeview et ça marche pas. Il y a beaucoup de problèmes avec les maisons, nouvelles maisons qui est construite là, un problème de drainage, etc. Aussi, c'est un bon exemple d'un bloc entièrement changé, le caractère changé sur le règlement de SPAY dans le Lakeview. Ça ne marche pas. Nous avons besoin d'un gel du développement. Nous devons attendre pour la réforme qui fait possible l'implémentation de la vision qui est besoin pour notre ville. La dernière chose, ce n'est pas une nouvelle idée, à mon avis, parce que le concept de le gel, c'est parlons par les citoyens en avance de la general election, l'élection générale le novembre passé, mais aussi j'ai sujet à mes collègues avant quand j'arrive sur le conseil, est-ce que c'est possible d'avoir cet gel pendant nous faisons notre considération de les issues, des choses. Le dernier mot, c'est pas possible pour prédicter la future. Il n'y a pas de garantie de ça, mais il y a une garantie si nous continuons avec le système ancien. Ça marche pas pour la vision de la ville. Il y a continue avec les problèmes de développement qui nous expérimentent maintenant. Donc, je m'excuse pour ma français, mais j'espère que c'est...
Et peut-être la prochaine. Je m'excuse, madame.
J'aimerais apporter une correction à M. Gruber, par exemple, parce que savez-vous, sur 200, selon le rapport de l'urbanisme, sur 200 excavations que nous avons eues dans les dernières années, à Baie-D'Urfé, seulement 2 maisons ont des problèmes de drainage.
Non, conseillère
d'excavation.
excuse, vous avez, conseillère Chantant, vous n'avez pas le droit de confirmer ça. C'est une service qui a donné un petit peu d'informations. Okay. On n'a pas eu la chance. Donc, s'il vous plaît, pour le respect des gens, de la public, c'est pas le moment de mentionner quelque chose qui vient d'une personne. On est en train de regarder et c'est exactement pourquoi nous sommes dans la réflexion de regarder ça au complet et pas proposer des solutions qui fait un band-aid. Mais comme RS, ça c'est un peu, j'ai un vote comme tout le monde, mais j'ai le privilège d'être la dernière personne de parler avant qu'on va voter. Donc, je vais commencer avec mes commentaires personnels. En premier, si vous me permettez, j'aimerais clarifier une chose. Le SPAPE, qui est le PIA en français, sur notre territoire, juste pour clarifier, présentement, ça appartient pas à Lakeview, ça appartient au Lakeshore au complet. Le SPAPE applique au Oxford et au Sunny Acres. C'est juste une petite clarification que j'aimerais noter pour le futur. Donc, ça, c'est le SPAPE présent de la ville. Vous pouvez demander, je peux répondre à des questions après qu'on termine cette partie-là.
Oui, d'accord, mais c'est bon de savoir de quoi vous parlez aussi.
SPAPE, c'est quelque chose qui existe présentement dans notre territoire. Ça existe depuis longtemps. Puis, ça veut dire que les maisons sur ces rues-là suivent un autre niveau d'approbation. Donc, les autres rues, on va par un comité de démolition et si ça suit nos réglementaires, c'est oui ou non. Le SPAPE, ça prend en caractère un SPAPE en général. Il y en a beaucoup de villes qui l'ont, un peu différentes dans chaque ville, mais le SPAPE, c'est des choses qui ne peuvent pas être réglementées avec des numéros, avec ces mesures exactes. C'est un peu plus la caractère d'une communauté, comment intégrer les maisons sur une zone spécifique. Donc, oui.
Madame la mairesse,
Oui.
juste pour le bénéfice de la compréhension, le SPAPE en français, c'est PIA, Programme d'intégration architecturale.
Merci. Donc, je vais me répéter, je vais commencer en français, je vais me répéter en anglais et j'ai quelques petites additions à faire à la fin. Donc, encore pour la clarification, une RCA est un outil régi par le LAU. Le LAU, c'est la loi d'aménagement d'urbanisme qui est une loi provinciale. Et c'est ce mécanisme est mis en place dans les conditions très strictes. C'est pas tout le monde qui peut faire un RCA juste comme ça. Il y a des conditions qu'une ville doit suivre. De nombreux citoyens nous demandaient d'agir et nous agissions par le biais de notre refonte des règlements et de notre document d'urbanisme. Mais cela prend du temps. J'aimerais que nous ayons une baguette magique, mais la réalité est que le processus de réforme des règlements est lent. C'est exactement pour cela que cet outil, le RCA, existe dans la loi. Il donne à une ville la possibilité de travailler avec des révisions, le temps de consulter les citoyens pour obtenir leurs commentaires et d'assurer que la direction prise est la bonne. Je me rends compte que cela affecte certaines à court terme, mais je crois fermement que notre communauté mérite cette pause pour s'assurer que l'avenir va dans la direction que nous souhaitons pour voir pour les prochaines générations à venir. Plusieurs membres du conseil ont évoqué que je considère comme des solutions de fortune pour éviter d'utiliser cet outil. Il n'est pas le temps de précipiter, il est le temps de réfléchir, d'élaborer ce plan, de s'asseoir à la table avec les citoyens, citoyennes et de travailler à des solutions long terme. Essayer de passer rapidement un SPAPE ou un PIA à l'échelle de la ville, à mon avis, c'est pas le bon outil. N'est pas mis en œuvre rapidement et risque de nous faire perdre notre objectif en détournant du temps, de l'énergie, des ressources, de la grande image, c'est le refonte réglementaire. Les outils dont nous disposons, c'est l'option de RCA. Pour les nouveaux membres du conseil qui se sont joints à nous plus récemment, la conversation menant aux décisions d'aujourd'hui peut sembler précipitée de leur point de vue. Comme nous avons rencontré les services professionnels à Pure plus tôt cette semaine. Mais j'assure à ces membres du conseil et à nos citoyens, citoyennes, que ces conversations menant à la décision d'aujourd'hui ont eu lieu au sein du conseil précédent et dans le cadre de ce nouveau mandat. De sorte qu'il serait injuste de laisser entendre que vos collègues prennent des décisions irréfléchies. Il y a eu de nombreuses conversations sur la façon de gérer cette transition. Ce que nous a été donné cette semaine, c'est l'information sur le mécanisme du RCA disponible à nous. Je sais que chaque membre du conseil aujourd'hui a beaucoup réfléchi à l'avenir de notre ville et de notre communauté. Ce n'est pas une décision prise à la légère, mais je pense que nos maisons valent plus que la valeur du terrain sur lequel elles se trouvent. Nos citoyens méritent mieux que cela et je crois sincèrement que notre communauté bénéficiera à long terme si nous suivons ce processus correctement. La communauté a subi trop de pression au cours des dernières années et le visage de la ville change rapidement. Cela ne signifie pas pour autant que je n'ai pas pris en considération les effets possibles à plus court terme, mais je suis la mairesse d'une ville qui essaie de faire son mieux pour représenter tous les citoyens et citoyennes pour aujourd'hui, mais aussi pour son avenir. Aujourd'hui, il s'agit d'une motion et les citoyennes sont invités à nous écrire par info@baie-d'urfé.com. S'il vous plaît, mettez dans votre titre RCI ou RCA dans le titre et vos commentaires seront dirigés à votre conseil pour réflexion. Avant que je change en anglais, je vais juste, il y avait quelques points mentionnés par quelques conseillères et j'aimerais les adresser. Encore, comme j'ai commencé cette réunion, ça existe dans la loi. C'est pas moi qui prends cette décision, c'est dans les lois de la cité et ville qu'il y a des raisons et des places qu'une séance spéciale peuvent être convoquées. Et cette loi-là dit on pourra le faire en 24 heures. Tous les conseillers sous cette loi doivent avoir une adhésion 24 heures avant la réunion. Donc, j'aimerais que notre greffière confirme que toutes les conseillères avaient reçu convocation de cette réunion à 11h30 hier.
Transmis dans les 24 heures.
À tous les conseillères. Parfait, merci. J'aimerais aussi clarifier quelque chose de mon collègue conseillère Thompson, qui a mentionné qu'il aimerait voir si le SPAPE pourra être appliqué partout aux démolitions à l'intérimaire au lieu de faire un RCA. Je confirme aujourd'hui que ce n'est pas possible de mettre un SPAPE sur des démolitions. C'est un SPAPE peut être fait dans des zones seulement. On ne peut pas spécifier juste des démolitions. J'ai déjà parlé un peu, c'est pas quelque chose de nouveau. On se parle, quand j'ai commencé à mon campagne en 2019, c'était une préoccupation là. Quand j'ai commencé comme conseillère, c'était pas la majorité de conseils à ce temps-là qui étaient en faveur de faire quelque chose. Mais des choses changent. Donc, je veux rassurer la public, c'est pas la première fois cette semaine qu'on se parle qu'est-ce qu'on pourra faire d'améliorer puis changer la direction de notre ville. Aussi, c'est juste une différence d'opinion. Il n'y a pas un qui est correct ou non, mais juste en termes de démolition, que conseillère Thompson trouve que nos démolitions sont trop restrictives à 50%. Moi, je suis dans une opinion différente et on a vu des maisons qui sont évoluées comme des rénovations, mais le bâtiment a complètement changé. Donc, moi, je trouve pas que nos démolitions sont trop restrictives, mais je respecte que je suis pas le seul et j'écoute mes conseillères autour de la table. En termes de communication, comme j'ai dit, c'est la loi qui précise que dans des circonstances exceptionnelles, on a le droit de convoquer une réunion exceptionnelle. Je prends pas ça comme I don't take this lightly. J'aimerais, comme citoyen, j'ai pas jamais aimé cette façon de travailler non plus. Je pense qu'on était très clair. L'agenda, je sais que toute l'équipe a changé leur journée, puis c'est très apprécié hier pour communiquer tout dans les deux langues, sur Facebook, sur le babillard électronique le plus tôt possible. Mais il y a des étapes à suivre. Puis la loi dit que la première chose, c'est d'être sûr que toutes les conseillères sont au courant qu'il y a une réunion convoquée dans les 24 heures. Après cette démarche-là, l'administration Switch a préparé pour aujourd'hui, pour faire les communications. Puis on a une équipe très dévouée, mais très petite et je pense que moi, j'aimerais les féliciter quand même. Donc, juste pour finir, puis là, je vais répéter en anglais. I understand that some councillors feel that this is rushed. I wish to assure the public, as I've said in French, that this is not a new discussion. For sure, the tool, the RCI, may have only been discussed this week because it's really specific and not, you can't just throw it out there. So for those of you who might ask the question later, why wasn't it done sooner? It can only be done on very specific circumstances. So the objective of our meeting this week was, as you know, we are working with APUR to go through our bylaw reform and our town planning. And so the focus of the meeting was not to discuss RCI. We had a long agenda, 3-hour meeting with APUR, and RCI was one topic within that. And we needed to get through that meeting, which we did. So while there was a discussion that continued after the meeting, there was most definitely the tool of the RCI was explained during the normal times of the meeting, what that tool is and what it could mean. What did continue beyond the 4 o'clock meeting was a further discussion to see how council felt. And as we know, while I like things to be unanimous, it is not always possible. And democracy does go by majority vote. In terms of my role as a mayor, so I live in this community. I have friends in this community. It's not always easy wearing 2 hats because there's many people I look at as I look around this room and table who I do consider friends, but I really do my best to separate my role as a mayor, which is the responsibility to all citizens, with the understanding that I won't please everybody. That is just not a realistic tool, and my role in my friendships. So I am true in my role as a mayor, and I am true in my role in my friendships. In terms of the last comment, and while I like to leave other towns out of the equation because I don't feel it's my place to get into what is right in another town, RCI is used in other towns. It's in the newspapers. I don't need to tell you about it. You can look it up for yourselves. There's many different reasons. And in terms of our neighbor, which was mentioned earlier, I will say that I had a very brief conversation with the mayor of that town, and it is not a statement that mayor would agree with. So I would like to just focus on what's our situation here and what we need to do for our town to make it right. So thank you for letting me address those things. I will repeat what I had prepared in French, in English, and then we will move to the vote. So an interim control measure is a tool that's governed by the Loi d'Urbanisme et Aménagement. This is a provincial law that governs urban planning, and it's a mechanism that is put into place if a council wishes, but it has very strict conditions. Many citizens have been asking for us to act, and we are taking action through our bylaw reform and town planning documents, but it takes time. I absolutely wish that I had the magic wand, but the reality is that the process of a bylaw reform is too lengthy for me, and I know it's too lengthy for many people in this room. This is exactly why the government has a tool called the RCI, and it is not something that is unknown to other towns. It gives the town the opportunity to work towards those revisions. It gives the time to consult with the citizens for the feedback and to make sure that the plan that we wish to adopt for its future includes that participation. I absolutely realize that this affects some more than others in the short term. However, I feel strongly our community deserves this pause to ensure the future moves in a direction that we wish to see for the next generations to come. Several council members raised what I feel are Band-Aid solutions to avoid using this tool. It's not the time, in my opinion, to rush. It's the time to reflect and come up with the plan, do the work, come to the table with citizens toward long-term solutions. Trying to move quickly to a town-wide space, in my opinion, is not the right tool. It's not the tool that the LIU says to use. It's not something to be quickly implemented, and it risks us losing focus by diverting our time, energy, and resources away from the big picture of the bylaw reform. The tool that the government has available, if it is the will of this council, is the RCI. So for our newer council members having more recently joined us, the conversation leading to today's discussion may appear rushed from their perspective, as we met with professional services earlier this week. But I assure those council members and our citizens here today and listening that the conversations leading to the decision today have taken place in previous councils and through this new mandate. So to imply that fellow members are making rash decisions would not be fair. There have been many conversations about how to manage this transition period. What was given to us this week was the information on the actual mechanism available. I know that each council member today has given much reflection, no matter what the vote, for the future of our town and your community. And this is not a decision taken lightly, but I do feel that our homes are worth more than just the land value they sit on. Our citizens deserve better, and I truly believe our community will benefit in the long term as we go through this process the right way. There has been too much pressure on this community in the last few years, and it is really changing the face of the town at a rapid rate. This does not mean, however, that I've given no consideration to the possible shorter-term effects. However, I am the mayor of a town, and I'm trying to do my best to represent all citizens, but not just for today or its future. Today is a motion, and citizens are very welcome to write to us via info@baie-d'urfé.qc.ca. I would ask you, because the person who handles this handles many incoming requests from citizens, please be clear in your heading that it's regarding the RCI, and that way your emails will get to all of council for reflection during this time. So I have nothing further to add at this moment, so we will go through the vote and then we will proceed to the next section. So all those in favor? Opposed? So for the record, there are 5 in favor and 2 opposed. So the motion passes. So as we move into the next section, comme on commence la prochaine section, qui est les périodes de questions. Bien sûr qu'on a reçu des questions. Pour être transparent, notre greffière a reçu toutes les questions pour les personnes qui ne pouvaient pas être en présentiel aujourd'hui. Je vais les lire. Plus ou moins, je pense que c'était tout adressé, mais je vais prendre le temps pour être transparente. Qu'est-ce qu'on a reçu comme question? Et s'il y a une petite chose, je vais rajouter à cette. So we will begin with the question period now. We did receive questions for people who obviously were short notice and not able to attend. I will read them out. I believe that they have been addressed throughout this period, this special meeting. However, in case there is some small detail, I wish everybody to hear that. But what I will do is I will start with the audience. Mr. Bouchard, so I would ask you to present yourself, present your name, please, and your address for the town clerk. I don't know if there's a space for them to be on camera, if there's a space that they you would want them to come up maybe to stand? Or can you turn the camera?
I could do that, but they could speak from there as
Okay,
well.
perfect.
We don't necessarily need it.
Perfect. So just speak nice and clearly, please, because this will be recorded and posted to our website by the end of today. So just for those people who didn't have a chance, just 1 minute, who didn't have a chance to be with us today, projection is wonderful. So I will open the floor to anyone here. Again, s'il vous plaît, commencez. Juste, vous pouvez lever la main en disant votre nom, votre adresse, s'il vous plaît, pour notre greffière et votre question. Et ce serait ma plaisir de vous répondre. Mr. Allison, do you have a question?
Ralph Allison, 704 Devon Place. Thank you very much for this meeting. My question that comes to mind immediately are the 90 days that it is a pause, we call it. What happens after the 90 days? Is that 90 days a fixed time? Can that be extended? What are the regulations regarding that time period? And 90 days is only 3 months. I'm just aware of how short that can be with the time. Is it felt that this can be dealt with in 90 days? And what actions will you take that will allow you to use those 90 days most efficiently, if possible?
Great. Thank you very much for your question, Mr. Allison. So the first part, the first question was what 90 days, what happens after that? So to be clear, this is a notice of motion. the government allows a town within those 90-day, so there's a freeze for a maximum of 90 days. And within that time frame, what we have given notice of motion is that we will be coming back to the citizens with a draft bylaw for an interim control bylaw that will clearly outline the parameters that this council, the majority of this council feels should be part of the bylaw. So if a town, I mean, it would be a very silly thing, but I don't want to comment on other towns. I'm the mayor here. Technically, if a town does nothing, this is why I say it's very strict. The government just doesn't let you say, I'm going to freeze demolitions indefinitely. If you do nothing within those 90 days and do not come back to your citizens and do not adopt a draft bylaw, this or freeze falls and it's back to normal. That should not be the intention, but I can't speak for other towns why they might not go forward with a bylaw.
Right, but connected with that question, there is now, I want to have a discussion, but if the town comes up with a written document that says this is what the temporary bylaw is, that only is in effect until the new bylaws are written. Is that correct?
The council will have to determine the parameters for that bylaw. So those things would all be spelt out in that draft bylaw. What today is it shows the intention of this council and puts a 90-day, a maximum 90-day freeze on demolitions in the residential sector only. That is what the decision of the majority of this council felt was the problem. And we work through the next steps.
May I just add, just to emphasize what the mayor, can I say something? Yeah, I guess I am.
Sure.
Okay, it's the 90 days like you're saying, but that gives the council the opportunity to bring forward a resolution that is to be framed, to receive feedback from citizens, etc., for an additional period if we see fit for more than 90 days. It's up to the resolution, the final resolution will reflect what that is, or it can be a resolution for a freeze, and then another resolution can be introduced at another point when the bylaws, for example, are adopted and everyone's agreed to them, and you can say, okay, the freeze is off now.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Allison. Yes, could I just ask you, maybe you can stand up and you're with your name and
Janelle, 94 Victoria.
94,
I have actually two, sorry.
94 Victoria.
Yes.
Juliet, you got it?
Juliet.
Okay.
Okay. I have two questions actually for you. So the first one is just what about the people that are right now in the process of requesting a demolition permit? And my second question is, in this 90-day period, is it possible that you will redefine what a demolition is? So like me, for example, we have a project and we're aiming for a renovation permit, but if you change the definition of the 50%, 20%, will I be affected? Will my project be completely over?
Okay, I just want to make sure I answer you. So the first question was, thank you for your question. The first question was what happens to those files that are in the process of the demolition?
Yeah.
That was the first part of your question. It is, normally I would refer this to the administration. I don't know, Mr. Bouchard, I'm happy to address it, but it's something that the administration will manage based on the will of council at this point.
So thank you for the question. The answer is, and it's very specific to the RCI, for the file, in order for the files that are in the pipeline to continue, they have to be substantially complete to continue. So if someone would have come and just say, here's my application with no documents and whatsoever, those would not go through. So the ones that currently are in the pipeline that meets those criteria will not be affected by the RCR.
Okay, and so the second part of your question is something I'm comfortable to answer. You asked if we felt that in that time frame you would be redefining what we might consider a demolition, therefore your project may or may, change in the scope. as I explained during the beginning, the bylaw reform, and it's the same in all towns. We'd like it to go faster. We shall see, but it can't make any promises. It takes 18 months to 24 months. That's the contract we committed to with the professional services. So no, to answer your question, those are not decisions that can be made and implemented in 90 days. They affect many different bylaws scattered throughout, and it needs to be done cohesively. So it is a chance for council to get through that big process. That would be the end goal. So no, we are not looking to put any.
So renovations wouldn't be necessarily halted like demolitions are, for example.
Okay, so that's, okay, so just to clarify, this council, again, it is up to every council. So when you say RCI, it can mean a different thing in Point Claire than Senneville or Sainte-Anne-de-Bellevue. It can protect green spaces. There's many things an RCI can do. It's all encompassing. And the town, through its council, needs to decide, well, what do we feel our problem is in our town? So a town can blanket an RCI if it chooses to. If we had a huge problem in our industrial park, we could choose to just, right now, we could have chosen just to say, the problem's not here, it's over there. Why would we freeze everything? So to answer your question, this council it feels that it is the issue with demolitions and integration of the new build. And so any project that falls under renovations continues throughout this, at this time, it continues throughout this process.
Yeah.
May I just have an add to that? Because I sense, I may be wrong, shoot me down, but I got an idea of something that you're driving at. Now, I'm not a lawyer, so I stand to be corrected by the administration who have legal expertise. But I think I interpret your concern to be, are you going to change the rules on me halfway through? And I get that. And my understanding, please correct me, administrators, is that if you've been accepted, the old rules will be applying to you. Am I right on that? If their file is complete now, they're not going to be.
Well, I think what's important to understand is if you fall currently under the renovation, you're not concerned. If you are less than 50%, which is the current rule, you would not be affected. If you exceed the 50% or request a demolition, then you're affected.
So let me just give you an example. For example, we want to apply for the rent less than 50% and everything, but as you know, when you open up walls, you open up the roof, you can find issues, right? So let's say everything is fine, the project is accepted, and all of a sudden we open the roof and we see there's an issue with part of the roof, and now we're at 52%. What happens?
That's a problem.
Then it's a problem. It becomes a demolition.
And then I'm halted and my house is open and I can't do anything with it.
Correct.
For the next 2 years.
Correct.
So
No, not yet.
Not necessarily. If you exceed the percentage, and we have cases like that currently in the town, they were frozen. We had to go to court. We had to because it becomes a non-authorized demolition.
Right.
So you have to reapply for a demolition.
And now
And in that case, it would be frozen for whatever time this RCI is,
because the
for 90 days
intention,
plus whatever.
the intention is good, but you never know what you're gonna find.
Yes.
So,
So, yeah, and the intention is it's challenging. I know that there's a couple other questions, so just to finish off, intentions, it is not for a council and it's not for an urban planning to pass judgment whether intentions are good or not. It's to apply the rules. So, if somebody, oops, it's accidental, of course, humanly, we all feel, empathy, but it's not a way to govern a town. So, Mr. Bouchard's answer is correct. And that will, unfortunately, it has happened. And so a project that happens like that, regardless of whether the RCR is problematic. So who has the next question? Yes, so your name, please, and your address and.
Nina Argento, 10 Lake. I have a question regarding, I don't come to many of the meetings. All of the important ones, I've always been here. I've been a Baie-D'Urfé citizen since 1979. Many members of my family that live here. We've all built houses, we've all renovated homes, we've all gone through these, standard procedural steps. Gone through all of the different paperwork that are required by the town. Including like the size of the brick that you use and everything else.
Yep.
So the town has always had the final say. It's never been the individual that is building the house that has the final say, because we've always had to make amendments to whatever the original plan in order to comply with the town's demands. That's number one, where I'm finding this a little bit cloak and daggery, is normally when there's an important town meeting that is going to affect our livelihoods, our largest investments for many of us. It's not posted at 8:40 p.m. for a meeting on a Friday, on a work day,
So
at 11:30.
thank you very much, Ms.
I have-
Sargento. What is
My
the question? Yes.
is, what's with the cloak and dagger and the super important urgency with regards to this meeting? That
Okay.
the town already has
Got it.
provisions in place
I get it.
with regards to the planning
Yeah,
that
so
and the houses that are allowed in our town.
Perfect. So I'm happy to answer your question. Before I answer you, I need to ask you, were you here for the entire presentation? Because I did address.
I was
Okay,
here. I
super,
was
super.
here.
Okay,
I'm already
okay,
here.
but I don't mind repeating myself. I just want to make sure because I don't take attendance because as I explained, and I said it in French and English right at the opening.
Je comprends les deux, mais je parle italien aussi, ça.
Well, I'm sorry, I can brush up, but I didn't prepare my speech in Italian. So, in reference first to why it's being done, I think I said it very clearly at the beginning. There are certain situations, I too, as a mayor, as a councillor, and as a citizen before that, I understand that there is trepidation when a special meeting gets called, knowing that I also felt that as a citizen. Sometimes it wasn't clear on the agenda. I made really sure with our team that I wanted it to be very clear. There's nothing to hide here. But there are situations when a special meeting, and that is why the law, not Baie-D'Urfé law, the Quebec law, it allows for that. And in my opinion, if this was the will of the council, we don't sit back and wait for a regular meeting so our town can catch wind that this is what we're doing, because this is a decision that is the will of the council, which is exactly what happened when we changed our demolition. We said, we're going to go through the NOMA process. We're going to do it at regular meetings, blah, blah, blah. And in the meantime, everybody under the sun who didn't like what we were doing was showing up at urban planning, causing a bottleneck and additional demolitions. So we're here today to talk about something that is very important to the majority of this council and many citizens. And it is the first step. So it's nothing about being cloak and dagger. It is a sense of urgency because I don't want to see that we're doing this for a reason. I don't want to see. So that's what.
We understood.
Okay. So
Normally town meetings take place.
well, we've had special meetings, like I haven't checked my record as a mayor. I mean, many. I rarely have called a special meeting. I'm going to say maybe twice. And I get it. I certainly get it, but there's a time and a place for it. And in this case, sorry, I know she had another question. And a time and a place for when urgency is needed. And that is a predisposition in the law that a town is allowed to do. So there will be an opportunity for you to write to us. We're not, calling a special meeting in 2 days from now to adopt a bylaw. If there are things that you want us to hear as we consider drafting this bylaw, the communication lines are there. So that's the first. And I know you had a second question, you first, but I flipped the order. So the first.
More like a comment.
Well, no, because the first part is, you said the town has the final say, and you're right. As all towns have the final say, and how they have the final say as opposed to the homeowners is because they have a set of bylaws in place. Right. And this council, going back at least, I would say a year, has said to the public, we're only as good as our bylaws. We realize that. And we have adopted, and everybody was on board with this, that, well, if it's our bylaws the problem, we better work at fixing them, which is why we're doing a review a refonte réglementaire. It's not the driving force. There are other things that need to be cleaned up in our bylaws, but we realize that. We realize that if these are the results that are not what we want, we own it. We,
Just a
Yeah.
clarification as the.
yeah,
As,
yeah. Juliana.
Julia has stated that in the event that one goes through all of the hoops and threads the needle and does the stitch and then gets a snag with the adaptation that you're looking at implementing, it will create a bottleneck type situation where a person can literally have a hole in their roof with water coming in and not be able to do anything about it. So then you're putting people in a very negative situation.
Yeah.
Listen, it's not a debate. I'm happy to have you here. I'm happy you took the time and I'm happy to answer you. But this RCI has nothing to do with that, because if that same person went through all those steps and did all that tomorrow, like yesterday, let's say, before we did this, and they run into that snag, it is a problem. It gets stopped. There is nothing we can do. That project, that person's good intentions, not a good, it doesn't matter. That goes from a renovation to a demolition, it's stop work. And it's go through the process and go through the hoops and go through the demolition committee and go through all that. So the RCI really doesn't change that. And we try to just, and I know our urban planning team tries to encourage people, don't go that far. Like it's dangerous, you know, but in the end, you know, you're all grown-ups and owners and you make the decisions that you make for your home. So it really doesn't have to do with the RCIs, all I'm saying. But please, if there's something that comes up, please write to us, info@baie-d'urfé.qc.ca. Okay, thank you very much. I think there was another question. So your name, please, and address.
Maddie Kazimian. I live at 707 Belker. I have a couple questions. My first question is that you said that you have to rush this meeting because there's an urgency, correct? Because you did not want the citizens to show up at the urban planning department. Is that correct, right? I do understand that there is a part of this community that is not for demolition, renovation, or any sort of project like that. It's understandable, but have you guys spoken to the other side, the other citizens that are for this, and how it will affect their livelihood, how it will affect their homes, their projects? Have you spoken to anybody about that? Number two, I want to address this because Mr. Gruber said that we cannot know if the prices of a home will drop or not. As a realtor myself, I'm asking all of you guys, what is your expertise in this department? And how do you make such a comment without doing any background check to verify how this will affect the real estate market and homeowners' real estate value?
Is that, I just want to make sure I get all your questions. That's all.
Third, I do have a third one.
Okay, it's 4, but that's okay. We'll finish it off at 4, Mrs. Kazimian. Go ahead. Why don't you ask the 4th question and then we'll start going through your questions.
Any of the council's members have any education in architecture, engineering, construction, or anything that has to do with building a home, demolishing and building a home? What is your education in this field?
Okay. Experience, just write it down. I work better if I'm more visual. So I want to go, so I'll go through your questions from 1 to 4. The first was about rushing the meeting and regarding not wanting citizens to show up at urban planning. You know, we say it differently, but yes, we're here to say that we're putting a hold on demolitions. It would be foolish to say, let's let this get through the rumor mill. Let's let everybody find out about this so we could actually not do the RCI because everybody under the sun is going to show up at urban planning, which is exactly, I'm just like, I'll finish. You'll have an opportunity, which is exactly what happened with our demolitions. We changed our bylaw. We increased it to $10,000, but we also wanted an independent engineering report option available to the demolition committee. And by the time it was adopted, well, guess what? Yeah, what happened? Everybody under their sun went and tried to file their demolition reports so they would not have to follow what we were going to adopt as new rules. Rules are there to be meant to follow. If the police think you're driving too fast, you know, they're not going to say, hey, guys, we're changing the speed limit, and we're changing, they do it. And, you know, so yes, I don't challenge that. When you're trying to change bylaws, you're not looking for people to find the loopholes to get around what you're trying to do.
It's not about loopholes, it's about consulting the people, the taxpayers that live here, that contribute to the community. And our tax dollars are going into things that, personally,
Okay, so Mrs. Kazari, I just want to go through your 4 questions. If there's no other questions from the audience and you have another one, you're welcome to. But as I said, and I've said it a few times, but I'll say it again, and I don't say that facetiously, we are asking, write to us, other perspectives, all for it. Do I have a lot of other perspectives in hand? I don't. I have a lot of people who have indicated that they've lived here, they want this community to develop in a sustainable way with integration. And if you have other perspectives or other people in this room who we haven't heard from, absolutely send them in to us. So today I am saying to anybody here and anybody who will be watching later, write to us at info@baie-d'urfé.qc.ca, put RCI in the title, and we will make sure that, you know, it's important that we all hear all perspectives. So that's absolutely accurate. I'm going to jump. You asked specifically, Councillor Gruber made predictions regarding home prices and real estate. Another councillor made predictions that we're going to kill our community and everybody's going to drop. So everybody can have a different perspective, whether their background is in real estate or not.
But a perspective is not what will back up your argument. You have to have substantial research to back up an argument.
Well, I'll just say that the RCI and the Loi de l'Aménagement doesn't ask the town to prove what we're going to do to our community. The goal is, and I think that everybody here, no matter which side of the table they stand on, is working in good faith for what they believe is the best for our community. But that is not a requirement of the law to have an expertise on that. That's all I'm saying. So I can, ask council members to go around the table regarding your last question about their professional experience, whether it be engineering or background, what they bring to the table. And before, I'll just go around the table this way, that way. And, but what I can say is we're not writing the bylaws. We hire professionals to write the bylaws. We have administration with urban planning degrees, and we have legal clerks with backgrounds as either notaries or lawyers. A council representation is not based on their skill set. Of course, it's added value, whatever is brought to the table. It's a bonus, but that is not the way, even in a small town, that we, the function of a council. So Councillor Lowenstein. You can say no, and you can say yes. You don't have to. She asked. I don't want to speak for everybody's professional background. If you don't think it's relevant, then say so. It's fine.
No, I'm happy to answer.
Okay, so go ahead.
I think that, to be a municipal councillor doesn't presuppose that you have a background in urban planning or a professional background in engineering, architecture, or anything related to urban planning. However, it does, then this whole process that we're going through is to put in place an opportunity for us to reflect and to gather the information and the expertise that we need to make the best decisions in this regard and to consult with citizens. For myself, as I mentioned in my statement, I have 4 years of experience having to look at different demolition projects and the process that they go through and the end result and what got to the end result. And I've found over the years that to be very frustrating. So in terms of what we can do to improve. Not all situations are the same, but that has led me to this. And so that is my experience as well. Not my professional experience, my experience as a counselor in this case. I have personal experience in my own home construction and home renovations as well.
Thank you. Councillor Basada?
No, I don't have experience and I don't have an engineering training, but I listen to the expert, I do some research, and I rely on the professionals, the administration hire and our urban plan.
You're selling yourself short. You're an MBA graduate. Come on.
I don't have engineering.
Okay, that's fine. You're very
More than
talented.
engineer.
Tom, it's up to you, Councillor Thompson.
Well,
Up to you.
I hope you read my campaign brochure where a lot of my experience was there. But I understand you're a real estate agent. For your information, when I graduated from university, I went to work for Westbound Realties at the time as an industrial real estate agent, so I have that experience. For the last 25 years, I ran a building, a 5-story building downtown with 2 elevators, a very sophisticated HVAC system, state-of-the-art alarm system, electrical systems, so dealt with contractors and anything to do with construction. We had over the course of the last 10 years, $2 or $3 million renovation project going on. So I mean, I'm not exactly sure what you're looking for.
That's perfect. I'm just curious.
I've had 12 years, 11 years experience on council from 1990 to 2000 in Baie-D'Urfé. I served as the president of Nova West Island, which is a charity that looks after palliative care, cancer and ALS patients.
Super.
And here I am again. It's
Thank
not
you.
like a bad thing.
We'll go to Councillor Gruber, Chartrand, and then Councillor.
Okay, happy to answer your questions. First, I find it necessary to say once again, I'll speak only for myself, but I will tell you, I don't know anyone else who this doesn't apply to. I don't know any anti-demolition councillors or even most citizens. Houses will have to be demolished in our town. So this thing that keeps coming up, as I said, the brush is painted, often by people interested in real estate, that somehow we're anti-demolition. It's just, honestly, it's really frustrating. It is frustrating. It's nothing to do, I mean, houses have to be demolished. We're interested in what goes up instead of it. So please, let's not hear any more of that part.
But it's about.
And second,
yeah,
well, that was a point, I'm
I
sorry,
know,
that
but
was one of the,
she
that
asked,
was one of the
I
things.
specifically
So-
asked just councillors because the question was
Yeah,
what.
well, I felt the need to answer that. Second is with regard to my experience, I have had many years as the chairman of a 40-person international management consulting company managing multi-million-dollar projects around the world. Of many of the projects of which, for example, reorganizing electricity boards in India, working with SNC-Lavalin, a lot like that. I had none of the expertise. My job was to know who to go and ask and who to put on the team to get the right answers for. And that's the skill that I hope in some small way to bring to this council, knowing that we've got the best administrative team who are there to answer the questions that we need answered. So that's the skill that I bring in that point. And on more just practical basis, as the chairman of that company, we moved into the Sun Life building down at next to the Air Canada one. I can assure you there's a lot of renegotiated the lease the first time, the second time, the remodeling, as well as being a homeowner, I'm quite aware of that. And to your third thing about going, I would be very cautious about who I go to for real estate experience, because this is no reflection on you, I know nothing about you, but the vast majority of real estate agents have only known their business in a low interest environment, and like stockbrokers, many of the younger people have no idea of what it is as the context changes. So I wouldn't really be looking to them for experiential advice at all. And I do follow what is published on the real estate. I have an interest in it. And I find as much conflicting advice there as I do directions that I could actually draw something practical from. So that's where I'm at.
Thank you, Councillor Gruber. So Councillor Chartrand and Councillor Brown, any council members have a professional experience, engineering, builders, etc.? That's the question, please.
So I have over 26 years of investment in real estate properties and things like that. I have gone through different droughts of real estate. I've gone through different times of investment of real estate and not. I've also gone through different projects of applying for permits and things like that at different towns. I know the delays it took before COVID. I now know the delays it takes for land surveyors. They're anywhere between 4 to 6 months to get your land surveying done. I know delays on drainage. They're also anywhere to 4 to 6 months. You want to get your septic tank redone? Well, it's 6 weeks before you get an appointment, and then it's another 8 weeks before you actually get your permits put in. Then you got to go try to find your contractor that can do the work.
Okay, Councillor
maybe
Shaw,
7 months.
thank you.
That being said,
It's about
the delays are there.
experience.
The delays are there. And so when I hear that we're going to have an influx of permits being done, it is impossible. Because the only way the permits are being taken is when we have a full file, and a full file takes months, months and months and months, 6 to 9 months right now due to COVID.
Councillor
planning.
Shaw, thank you very much, but as chair, this question is asked to all councillors, your professional experience.
I'm explaining my experience,
And
and that's my
Councillor Brown.
experience.
Okay. My professional background is in accountancy, taxation, and regulatory compliance. I don't have direct experience in real estate. However, what you mentioned in your question and your comment resonates with me very much, and that's that whenever we come to make decisions, momentous decisions, we need to do the proper research and the due diligence. And that's why I really believe in this motion, because I feel that we need the time and the space in order to consider what is coming up with these bylaws. And that's really why I voted.
Okay.
But my background mainly is professional accounts.
Thank you, Councillor Gruber. So I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
You're seeing double?
Yeah, I know there's 2 more questions. Can I have a show of hands how many more questions are? Because I do want to read out the, so I'm just going to, we'll go in order. I know, Juliana, if you don't mind, just because you've had a few questions, I will, okay, just 1 minute. So we have Mr. Ranger, there's Ryan, I don't know everybody's names. So 1, 2, 3, 4, is that it? Okay, because I need to read out the other questions. So we'll start this way and we'll just go down that way.
Me?
So, oh, I'm sorry, we'll come to you at the end. No, I was starting at the back. I'm so sorry. You can enjoy your seat for a couple more minutes.
All the time.
So just your name and your address, please, and your question.
Derek Cowie, 6 Morgan. I also own Ranger Design in the industrial park. I guess what Mrs. Argento said resonated with me. The town has the last say with any permit application, any addition, renovation, demolition. So I'm struggling to see why the town needs to do anything further when you already have the last say. And when this motion is introduced and we already know 5 councillors are in favor and only 2 are against it, it seems like our opinion or our voice is kind of wasted. When Egbert became mayor, I sat down with you and I told you I was pro-development. I was in favor of replacing small old houses with newer houses that were energy efficient and built for what people are wanting these days. But I just feel like my opinion or my voice is not heard. And can the council give any assurance that the opinion of people that want new houses, want demolition permits to be put through in an efficient way, is our opinion even registered or considered, or are we wasting our breath?
Those are great questions. So one in the bucket of the town has the last say. These council members, the administration only can work as they're only as good as the bylaws that are on paper. So many residents and many councillors around this table and for a long period of time have been struggling because some of, not all, some of what has been developed in this town has either created problems on the infrastructure, some with more water, some it is, they meet our bylaws, right? So if the citizens and this council wants to change those bylaws, you know, we need to work them through. And that's the process of the bylaw reform, is working them through. And there will be, opportunities for public consultation. This is not these people around the table making the decisions for what your future properties will look at. And we absolutely welcome those conversations and that participation. We will make sure that it's on our billboards. We will make sure it's on Facebook. We will make sure it's sent out on MailChimp. Part of the meeting that we had with the APUR, the consultant this week, was, okay, when do we start? When do we start consulting people and getting their feedback? And so we build this together. We need to do our legwork. We're not going to come to you with nothing on the table and just try and please everybody. It's not possible. So we need to build that framework and then seek your feedback and other suggestions that might have been missed. So currently, this council feels that there's parts of our bylaws that are problematic. So they don't feel they have the last say. It's the bylaws that have the last say, and we're working towards that. I remember, and I appreciate our conversation. I know it was Zoom back then because it was full on with COVID, and Mr. Bouchard attended. I absolutely heard you. It is important for any citizen, and while I completely appreciate the one-on-one and the presentation and your perspective, having lived in this community a long time and valued citizen, as everybody is, it's important for you to write to the council as a whole. Not that I keep a secret from council, but that is the mechanism to reach everybody so your voice can be heard. In that conversation, there was also an exchange about it's not all, but we need to do this in a sustainable way. And we talked about basements and septic tanks and sump pumps and some of the issues that this council and previous council have seen with some of the repercussions of some of the new builds. Not all. I don't like to put everybody into a blanket. So yes, you're absolutely, I can't speak for the council, but if you write to us, if you attend the meetings, and I know you have attended demolition meetings and participated, your voice will be considered. There's no one who should be excluded from this conversation, including those who have lived here for a long time, who are concerned about some of the things they've seen in development.
I'll just add
Yeah.
Just to add to what our mayor's just said, it's not development per se. And for me in particular, it's doing the right kind of development to sustain. We're dealing with climate change. We're dealing with all kinds of different changes that have happened as a result, and to make sure that what we build or what comes to our town and the process and we're even with regards to trees, if we're dealing with cutting down trees or maintaining trees, which ones and how and what's the best process, and it's not just the development. It's making sure that it's done the best way, looking forward, looking to our future.
I guess I would just say that there are bylaws, and the bylaws already protect the trees. I applied for a tree permit this week. I paid my $10 for the tree, for a dead tree. There's a system there. If people are following it, everything's fine.
Well,
yeah, well, that's another thing.
Well, then the people that are
That's a separate topic. Jan, I'm sorry. We need to get through this meeting. Excuse me. It's not you can have that afterwards. We won't kick you out of the building or anything, but I would like to, it is getting long. I still have questions to read from those who have attended. Yes, and I know there's some questions. So I'm still going to go to the back. I just would like to get
But
the
I
questions.
do feel the
Maybe
need
you
again, if I may, to respond to that specific question. It's a 1 minute.
Councillor Gruber, could I ask you a favor? Could you just write yourself a note? I really want these people to have an opportunity. And if we have
It's
time,
about the question.
I know, I realize that. Mrs. Ryan.
Janet Ryan, 105 St. Andrews. I just wanted, first of all, to congratulate council on the step you're taking today. I'm very happy to see this being done. And I look forward to seeing the RCI. I trust that you will have something to show and to vote on within the next 90 days. My question is very simple. Assuming that you do present an RCI at one of the forthcoming council meetings. Will the wording of it be available to the public before you vote, either on the town website or on paper copies for people who are attending the meetings? I understand why you don't have it today. Obviously, you're still working on it. This is an exception to the normal case where new bylaws coming forward. Normally, if the wording of the bylaw is available before any vote is taken on it, or at the point of the notice of motion. I understand that that's not the case here, but just wanted to make sure that it will be available to the public before you have the vote on it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question, and
I will have to look into that. I haven't been here long enough to be able to answer on the spot,
I think-
but I can find you.
I think, Mr. I wanted to give you a chance. I know. I'm not trying to put you in the spot. You can answer.
The answer is yes, as any other bylaw, it will be available to citizens before the meeting, so you'll get to know what council is going to vote on.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So we'll go all the way to the back of this gentleman standing up.
Jacques Bouchard, 55 Lakeview. I did renovate my home in 2009. This is a short preamble just to just to establish what I'm trying to bring forward. I did in 2009 have to apply for a permit for demolition because I was going up, and that meant that I was changing the roof line, so I had to put up a bond value of the house. It was a hardship. 5 months into it, I asked for it to be reimbursed. I live within earshot. Since 2009, I've lived within earshot of 11 demolitions and rebuilds. That means that summer, spring, fall, I got jackhammers, heavy equipment, dust, dirt, noise, holidays, weekends, time off. I don't care what it says on the billboard. Professional contractors will work 24 hours a day if they can. I have speculators, for instance, the house right next door, a beautiful little veterans cottage that's been turned into a $2.45 million monolith. What are you guys doing to protect the speculators and the investors who want to come here and make their millions? Because I'm looking forward. I know I can speak right now for there's probably 5 or 6 properties that haven't been demolished yet. And we're eagerly waiting for them to be torn down so I can live in a construction zone for the next 10 or 12 years that I'm in this stupid city. I mean, I came here for the bucolic charm and the fact that my house, like many others, was like a city park, and I had privacy and quiet. Guess what? Ain't no quiet happened for the last decade. I actually support the moratorium because what happens is the people who came here to live for quality of life have had it stripped. And I'm really happy that you can knock down your house and go in and take 50% and then suddenly find that it's 53%. Well, guess what? There are rules.
So,
You know, so if you know where you're going,
Mr.
and you take a chance, you will know where you're going. So what happens is, the bottom line is, what are we doing to protect the speculators and the investors who come in here, buy a property, knock it down, build something big, make their money and get the hell out?
I get it. Thank you for your question. Thank you for coming.
I need to know.
I agree. I will try and answer you. I want to remind everybody today, the questions are supposed to be about the RCI. I know you took time out of your schedules and you came here, and I'm trying my best to, remain open, and we're here to hear you. But for the sake of how long this meeting's going, I will say again, it's about the RCI. The RCI does not, unfortunately, it's not my place to say it's a free world. The RCI does not have that mechanism. That is free market. And how that will affect us going forward, I don't know. It was lovely to hear how you turned your home and evolved it into something that suited you over time. And I do realize that there's a new generation coming into our town. And I, understand that they will want to grow their families and make changes. It's not about stopping anybody. It's about what's left, because once a speculator comes in and changes it, they sell it, and that's fine. And a lovely family moves in and they become part of this community, and that's wonderful. But we want there to be, citizens have said it, they want it to be integrated into this setting. So that's what we're trying to do. So but thank you very much for your question. And then I think Juliana, and then we have this lovely young gentleman who's been so patient in the front row.
I just feel the need to say I'm just a mom and a wife with 2 kids that just started school at APH, and my goal is to stay here for as long as I can.
Yeah.
My husband is German. My grandfather built a house on Lakeview when he was a veteran. We have links to this community. I'm not here to change the town. I actually want to live here and raise my kids.
And we're, you know what? If you, it doesn't, you know, whoever you are in the audience today, doesn't matter. You know, it's lovely that you're saying this, but you should feel welcome. People who are realtors should feel welcome. People who develop or growing their families or have multiple generations, everybody should feel welcome here, and nobody needs to feel shamed. You're all part of this community, and you know, your question.
On that, my thoughts.
Yes.
I am concerned about a financial aspect and not about the value of my house, because I'll be living there for a long time. But as all of you know, it's an extremely emotional and financially difficult process. And you're coming here within 24 hours, turning things around, and we are invested financially in this. And it has a real impact on the finances of families like mine. My concern here, I will be doing a renovation permit. We're at 38% of the roof, to be precise, so I do have margin. We're at 17% of the walls and 38%. I'm not going to the limit, but I'm scared. I'm scared that something's gonna happen to my roof, and then I have an open house and I ruin financially.
I can't comment today on your, you know, way out of my scope to comment at face value. It sounds like a very realistic project. I understand the stress that information brings, and today was really to hopefully really clarify what we're doing here today and what we are imposing a 90-day freeze on.
And to come back to the timeframes, we have been at it for over 12 months. Once you find an architect, it took 6 months before she could even start to look at everything. There's one thing after the other. It will take 12 to 18 months to have a complete file to show to the town. And I have been in touch with Alex, who's wonderful, great guy, but they won't see our file. He can't give me pointers as my architect's plan. Okay, you know, so there's people that are now heavily invested personally that were almost ready to present their plans, and now they're stuck not being able to move forward, and probably by the time that they can, the rules will have changed. And I do support reviewing the bylaws. I completely support the thing, but people doing projects today can only work with what they have, and they're investing with the rules that they have in front of them. I can't do my plans based on what maybe things will be.
I thank you for saying what you're saying, and I'm happy that you're here today. I don't really have anything further to add at this point, because it's really not about.
I just wanted to know.
I understand. I understand. And you know what? But you know what? The reason I want to move on to this gentleman in 1 second is because, you know, we're all living different realities. Another resident comes and they say, I've been living here 45 years. I've had a beautiful quality of life. Something goes up next to them and it changes their quality of life, and they're not happy. So there is no perfect answer into what we're doing. We're making what we think are the best decisions for in the grand scheme of how long, hopefully you will be a part of this community, will be the right decisions for that community. But I have to be careful, because again, we all are living different realities.
So why can't something of that nature, why can't it be given as like a 3 months or 6 month notice to the citizen of this town, saying like, people in the next 6 months, there will be a freeze. Whatever project you have ongoing has to be closed by that time, and then new set of rules will come instead of a 20.
This is something that you would like council to consider. I won't say it for a third and fourth time, but write to us, and your council members will get to read your perspective.
But just to know that this 3 month ban, when you consider we have winter in Quebec, that means that in 3 months we'll be in the winter, so people will not have had their permits processed, and you don't order things before the permit is issued, right? So people have been affected already.
You will be heard by council It's easy by email. In the old school, you'd have to write by hand or type it or anything and drop it off, but email is lovely, so I welcome you to bring it forward. Oui, monsieur.
Jacques Poulin, 47 Lakeview. I just wanted to comment on something that Senator Gruger, Councillor Gruger said. 7 years ago, there was a house was sold for less than $400,000, and the taxes were probably $1,200 a year. Now we've been living in a new house was built, and we've been, my wife and I and our two daughters, been living in this house, the new house, for 5 years now. It's the same lot size. It's a brand new septic system. We added edges, flowers, beautiful grass. Well, some of it is damaged from it. And the value is close to $4 million, and taxes that we pay is $11,000 to $12,000 a year. Now, Councillor, is it bad for Baie-D'Urfé this? Because you mentioned it was bad what was going on.
No.
And I retained that, and I said, no, I don't think it is.
Okay, no, I'm afraid that is a answer.
Yeah,
No.
absolutely,
No,
absolutely.
it's, first of all, I said I'm not referring to any one particular house. Second is, I'm guessing where you live from memory that, I'm not against big houses being built. What I am for is the preservation of the harmony of neighborhoods, okay? So if we were to go ahead and just have, I'll tell you what my personal, so I wouldn't want to, even if they are nice houses worth $4 million with beautiful flowers, I don't want to live in a town where it's all that. It's just one. There are towns like that near us, Kirkland and places like that. There's nothing wrong, and it's not a question of good or bad. It's just that where there are already big houses, that's fine. Have a big house. It's not. I'm not anti-demolition. I'm not against big houses per se, but I am against houses that have, as Wanda has very eloquently described, affect the environment profoundly, with huge basements that, not all, but some houses affect water tables and so forth, which does happen and has to be tended to, which cut down all the trees. I'm not saying you did this, but also change the nature of an entire neighborhood. So it's not about one house, and it's wonderful that all our houses have gone up 40% in 2 years and still remain at that level, but it's not about your house per se or anything that any one individual had done wrong. When I'm that example, followed the rules. The rules said, apply, do this, and you can knock your house down. And then the whole block changes completely, which I'm not going to go into it now, but not only can it affect the physical infrastructure, it can affect the social infrastructure of the town as well. I'll just leave it at that. There's nothing about your house or something wrong with having a large house, or there's something wrong with demolition. No, that's not me.
Okay. Thank you. So I'm just going to read out, and then I think people, I hear people's tummies grumbling, so we might want to.
That's mine.
I didn't know. I'm just saying, I see that it's, I do want to I want to read the questions that we did receive, but honestly, I've read them. I believe they've all been addressed, but Dirk Peters, 719 Westchester, what is in the interim control bylaw regarding demolitions? Yes, perfect. Dan Wilkes, 101 Bedford. I received an email notification of the town meeting asking for questions at 5:50 this evening, with the requirements that questions be submitted by noon on the day of the meeting, which is tomorrow.
Was mine.
Fine.
Yeah, okay, I know, I'm just reading the question as I've received it. This allows approximately 18 hours for concerned citizens on the email list notice to investigate the issues. Is this a short notice the result of incredibly poor planning on the part of the city management? No. Or an attempt to limit input from concerned citizens? No. So my short answer is no and no. It's not poor planning, but if you watch the video, you will see why I feel it was important to call a special meeting. Do we want to limit input? No. info@baie-d'urfé.qc.ca. I don't think anybody will forget it after today's meeting. It'll be in there. And as for why you received the email notification late yesterday, I was probably too involved in administration yesterday, which should not be my role, but there were challenges. We've had some technology challenges. MailChimp was down. And as soon as with the dedication of Philip in our communications role, he kept watching it to see when he could get it up and running. And that did happen beyond the hours of his regular day. And he was kind enough to monitor it and send it out, knowing how important it was from me directly to communicate this. So it got out on the billboard. We put it out on Facebook. As soon as it was publicly noticed, I know many of us reached out through our social networks to engage people in this conversation, but the MailChimp was not working at a certain point. Anna Gregory, 695 Westchester. Again, I believe it was answered, but I'd like to know why the citizens of Baie-D'Urfé were given less than 18 hours notice for a meeting that is held on Friday at 11:30. It's very inconvenient time for most citizens to attend a meeting of such importance. So again, I think it was answered. Just in compliment, this video will be going up much faster. Normally, it takes us 48 hours with our external, and we'll see today. I know it's going much longer.
Size of it,
Oh,
it may take longer.
So it will get up as soon as possible. Martin McCarthy from 701 Churchill Place. I find it quite disturbing to get a notice for such a drastic amendment to our bylaws in such short notice on the weekday during a time most citizens work to earn their living. Can you please clearly explain this amendment and send it to citizens in a timely fashion for us to be aware before you vote? Will you commit to take the time to advise citizens in a timely manner for anything affecting us? Again, I believe this is answered, and as follow-up question to Mrs. Ryan in the audience, once the draft bylaw is done, it will be shared. And the next one is Katerina Agostino, 20024 Wilson Place. Why is a meeting of this magnitude being announced so last minute and being held during the day? That was addressed. When many citizens can't attend. Also, why is the meeting not being broadcast like many other meetings have been? Again, our normal meetings, we hire a company who's in very large demand, and the scheduling is done well in advance. So I'm very grateful that we have somebody on board who is doing his best to keep the technology going. So our special meetings are when they're called at this last minute, that technology, we don't have it. And we look forward with our new town hall, hopefully, to have that technology built in to keep going in the right direction, keeping technology so people can watch from home. As someone who lives in a small cul-de-sac with 3 out of 7 homes abandoned, I'd rather owners proceed with their city-approved plans. Leaving these homes empty has left us in a very vulnerable position, during which time I had my car stolen. So this really isn't a question for the RCI. It is very concerning to read that 3 out of 7 homes on your cul-de-sac are left abandoned, or you consider them to be abandoned. I don't have the files in front of me. Off the top of my head, I don't really think that there is a project in the pipeline for any home on Wilson Place. So why those homes are left standing with nothing happening, I can't comment to. But it is concerning. Lauren Gregory, 106 Churchill. How does the council expect any resident of Baie-D'Urfé who is currently employed to attend a council meeting on a Friday at 11:30 with less than 24 hours? Who are you catering to this meeting time? We are catering to all citizens and doing our best to use all communication channels available to us. Those of you who were on council previously know that there was a time when live streaming or video recording wasn't happening. And having lived that myself, I realized that had I not been able to attend the meeting, it was impossible. Rather than only opportunity was to read minutes. Now you're able to go online in your evening in your pajamas while your kids are in bed and watch it in the comfort of your home. And again, the channels of communication are open. info@Baie-D'Urfé. Us younger or middle-aged residents certainly would like a say in our community. I'd love to have a chance, and we welcome that chance. Brian Manning, 24 Lakeview. Why is this town meeting being held on a workday? You know, a day when a good portion of residents and taxpayers actually work at a day job. Again, that has been addressed. Two last ones. Samantha Meckley, 32 Beechwood. Why was your meeting announced yesterday for today? On a day where most people work with no warning. All meetings are usually at the night. Again, it's been addressed. And the last one is from Cindy Mariani, 32 Beechwood. Why is there a meeting on Friday morning when most citizens are at work? This smacks of underhandedness. Secondly, why did we only get the notice yesterday? Please advise the reason for the moratorium being implemented. So thank you, Mrs. Mariani also, and to all of you who either asked your questions in person or sent them to us. And for those who weren't here, hope that you'll find the answers as you watch the meeting. So with that, we will move to the levée de la séance, the closing of the meeting. And is there a counselor who would like to propose, please? Counselor Gruber?
Second.
I move to second, close the meeting, yes? I move to close the meeting? Sure. I'll say, okay. Move, okay.
Not against.
By Counselor Gruber and seconded by Counselor Thompson. So the meeting, thank you, and the meeting is officially adjourned.